The blinding light of the Kylothian cruiser pierced through the cold expanse of space, its sleek metallic surface shimmering under the harsh beams of the nearby star. Inside the prison hold, Nathan Hart, captain of the Earth's elite forces, sat slumped against the wall, his wrists bound tightly with the same strange, silvered rope that had restrained him since his capture. A little bruised, a little beaten, but nothing too serious. After all, he had seen worse, much worse. The Kylothian Empire might have the technology to obliterate entire fleets, but they hadn't figured out how to break a human spirit. Or at least that's what Nathan liked to believe as he stared out into the empty void of space. The cell door slid open with a soft hiss, and a Kylothian guard stepped inside, his towering frame filling the threshold. His armor clinked as he moved, the deep hum of his internal engine vibrating the floor beneath Nathan's feet. The guard's face was a mask of indifference, and his eyes, if they could be called eyes, were entirely black, like twin pools of oil. Nathan grinned, though it was more of a reflex than anything else. "I'd ask if I'm late for a party, but I think you guys stopped throwing those a few millennia ago." The guard's expression didn't change, but the faintest twitch in his upper lip betrayed the tiniest hint of confusion. "Get up, human," the guard commanded, his voice a low mechanical growl. "The Queen wishes to see you." Nathan stretched his legs, yawning exaggeratedly. "Does she now? I'm flattered. Last time I checked, aliens were all about conquering and torturing. Maybe she'll surprise me with tea and biscuits instead. You know, break the mold a little." The guard didn't seem to appreciate the humor. He motioned for Nathan to rise, his hand a blur as he tapped his wrist communicator. The doors of the cell opened with a hiss, and Nathan was escorted down the cold, gleaming halls of the cruiser. "You know," Nathan said casually as they walked, "I gotta admit, you guys have one heck of an efficient operation going on here. Not the most inviting decor, though. Maybe a few plants, some vibrant colors. This metallic gray is a little depressing, don't you think?" The Kylothian guard didn't respond, but Nathan noticed the slight increase in the guard's pace, as though he were eager to get to the Queen's chambers before he heard more unsolicited design advice. They reached a grand, imposing door. No surprise there, considering it led to the throne room of Zitral, the Kylothian queen. The door opened with a deep, resonating thud, and Nathan was pushed inside, unceremoniously shoved into the center of the room. There she was, Zitral, the alien queen, and as usual, she looked like she had just stepped out of a nightmare. Her armored exoskeleton gleamed in the dim light of the throne room, its intricate carvings catching the faint glow of the hovering lights above. Her skin, an unusual shade of blue, was smooth and flawless. Her long golden hair cascaded down her back, contrasting sharply with the harshness of her appearance. Her eyes, fierce and calculating, locked onto Nathan with a gaze that could freeze a star. Nathan didn't flinch. He'd seen worse in battle. Besides, this whole throne room thing, a little overdramatic. The only thing it was missing was a moat and a dragon. "You've been captured by the greatest empire in the galaxy, human," Zitral's voice echoed through the chamber, smooth and commanding. "And yet, you stand before me unbroken, unafraid." Nathan took a deep breath, pretending to examine the throne room with exaggerated curiosity. "What can I say? I've had a lot of practice. Besides, I was hoping for a little more drama. Maybe a few more ominous organ notes in the background. You know, build some tension, really set the mood." Zitral raised an eyebrow. "You mock me, human." "Mock? I'm just trying to lighten the mood. I mean, how do you do it? Sit in a room like this all day, staring at the same old throne. No Netflix, no snacks. Must get pretty dull, huh?" For a moment, Zitral's expression faltered. Was that a flicker of confusion on her face? Or maybe, was it a hint of amusement? She quickly masked it, returning to her regal composure. "Enough. You've been brought here for one reason and one reason only. To kneel before me, to show your loyalty to the Kylothian Empire." Nathan raised his eyebrows, still grinning. "Kneel? I'm flattered, but I don't think we're at that stage of the relationship yet." Zitral's eyes narrowed. "What did you say?" Nathan shrugged. "I'm just saying, kneeling's a pretty big commitment, and I'm not ready to just throw myself down at your feet. I mean, we've just met. Don't you want to take it slow?" The Kylothian queen's patience thinned, but there was something in her eyes now, something unfamiliar. She had expected fear, submission, perhaps even terror. But this human was different. He wasn't cowering before her, nor was he trying to fight her. He simply refused to be intimidated. "I will give you one chance," Citral said coldly. "Kneel, or I will make you." Nathan smirked, the corners of his mouth twitching with amusement. "I've been in worse situations, trust me. How about we skip the kneeling part and you tell me what you really want? Because from where I'm standing, you look a little like a ruler who's lost her spark." The queen took a step forward, her presence almost suffocating in its intensity. "You will show me loyalty, or you will die." "Loyalty, huh?" Nathan leaned back nonchalantly, crossing his arms. "How about this? How about I show you loyalty in my own way? We skip the kneeling and we talk instead. You might find it's more productive than the whole kneel or die shtick." Citral stared at him, her gaze unwavering, as though she were trying to determine if he was serious. Then, to Nathan's surprise, she tilted her head ever so slightly. "You are an anomaly, human. You are not afraid of me." "Nope," Nathan said with a grin. "Not afraid. But you should be careful. Keep poking the bear, and it might start making jokes back." The queen's lips twitched, a barely perceptible motion. Had she smiled? Impossible. Yet there it was, a flicker of something unguarded in her eyes. For the first time, Nathan felt like maybe, just maybe, he was starting to make a dent in the armor of the unflinching Calothian queen. Nathan woke up to the sound of humming, not the soothing, melodic hum of a spaceship's engines, or even the low buzz of distant machinery. No, this was a more unsettling hum, sharp, mechanical, and persistent. It seemed to reverberate through his bones. He cracked open an eye only to be greeted by an entirely new type of discomfort, a bright artificial light hanging above his head, casting long shadows against the walls of his cell. He was on the floor, his hands still bound, but he wasn't alone. A Calothian guard stood at the door, arms crossed, looking mildly annoyed. "Finally awake, human?" the guard grunted, leaning against the frame of the door. Nathan sat up slowly, stretching. "You know, if you guys keep making this light so intense, I'm going to have to start wearing shades." He glanced around the room and then raised an eyebrow. "You don't even have a single plant in here. Honestly, this place is a bit depressing. Ever considered a few ferns? Some calming music?" The guard didn't seem to have a sense of humor. "You've been summoned to the queen again." Nathan groaned, rubbing his neck. Right. I figured I'd get a second visit. This time, do I get a drink first? Maybe a nice alien cocktail?" He gave the guard a sideways glance. "Or are you guys still into torture and long monologues?" The guard grunted, then motioned for Nathan to stand. "If you know what's good for you, human, you'll follow me." Nathan stood, stretching his arms above his head as he walked. "Don't worry, I'll behave. I've heard good things about your queen's hospitality, mostly that it involves a lot of threats and little conversation." The guard once again did not laugh, but Nathan didn't mind. The awkward silence wasn't enough to dampen his mood. He was still alive after all, and a little humor went a long way when faced with alien overlords. They navigated the ship's sprawling corridors, passing by alien soldiers and high-tech control panels. Every inch of the Calothian cruiser seemed designed for one thing: intimidation. The walls were made of polished black metal, sleek and smooth, as if they could absorb all light. The floor beneath his boots vibrated slightly, a reminder that the ship was hurtling through the galaxy at unimaginable speeds. Still, Nathan couldn't help but let his mind wander, mostly to the ever-intriguing mystery that was Citral, the queen herself. By the time they arrived at the throne room, his mind was made up. He was going to make her crack. There was no way around it. He couldn't simply kneel before her. He wouldn't. But he could, at the very least, offer her a different perspective, one she might not have even realized she needed. The door to the throne room opened, and Nathan stepped inside. The room was still as grand and imposing as the first time he saw it, though this time he took note of the intricate details, the delicate alien carvings etched into the walls, the low, pulsating light that seemed to emanate from the throne itself. Citral sat upon it, her posture perfect, her gaze unwavering as she looked down at him. Well, human, you've been busy with your little jokes, I see," Citral said, her voice cool and commanding. "But I do not appreciate mockery." Nathan flashed a smile and shrugged. "Hey, who doesn't like a good joke? You know, a little laughter never hurt anyone." Citral's expression hardened. You dare mock me in my own presence? Nathan didn't flinch. Mock? Nah, I'm just suggesting you lighten up. You're like the universe's most intimidating ruler, but no one's ever told you to take a break. Maybe step outside, get some air, do a little yoga. He looked around, motioning to the empty space around them. You're sitting on a pretty nice throne, but doesn't it get a little lonely up there? I mean, I'm not one to judge, but that's some serious solitude. There's nothing like an I need a drink moment to shake things up. Zatral's gaze narrowed as she stood, her movement fluid, almost predatory. You will kneel before me. You will learn what it means to submit to the Kylothian Empire. Nathan raised both eyebrows and crossed his arms. You keep saying that and I get it. Power, authority, big words. But here's the thing. I've been through a few wars and you know what I've learned? The most powerful people? They don't demand loyalty. They inspire it. He paused, glancing at her, watching her eyes flicker for just a second. And you're not going to get that by threatening me, Your Highness. Zatral stared at him, her icy exterior faltering for the briefest of moments. But only for a moment. Her posture remained rigid, as though she had shut away whatever emotions had bubbled up, retreating into the cold void of her imperial mind. And you think I care for your opinions, human? You think that your empty words can sway me? Well, I was hoping for at least a laugh, Nathan replied, his tone light. A little chuckle. You know, something that makes me feel like this whole ordeal isn't a complete waste of time. But hey, if you're not up for it, no harm done. Zatral tilted her head, her gaze intense, almost as if she were weighing his words. You think I care for laughter? I am a queen. I do not need such frivolities. Right, of course, Nathan said, nodding. You've got an empire to run, armies to lead, worlds to conquer. But you've got to admit, a little fun would go a long way. How long has it been since you had a genuine conversation that didn't involve someone bowing or groveling? For a moment there was silence. Zatral's gaze softened, just the slightest bit, and Nathan thought he saw the faintest flicker of something, a crack in the ironclad armor she had built around herself. But before he could say anything more, she spoke. You are persistent, she said, her voice calmer now, though still tinged with the authority that came with being the ruler of millions of worlds. But persistence is not the same as respect. Nathan shrugged. Well, maybe I'm not your average guy. I don't care about your throne or your power or your empire. But if you're willing to listen, maybe we can find a way to talk that doesn't involve threats and posturing. Zatral took a step closer, her eyes never leaving his. You speak of loyalty and respect as if they are easily earned, human. As if I have not worked for every ounce of my power. Nathan met her gaze, his voice quieter now, but no less determined. Maybe you've worked for it, but you've also built walls. High walls. And you know what happens when you keep people out for too long? He paused for effect. You start to forget what it's like to be a person. Zatral's eyes flickered, her expression unreadable, and for a moment, Nathan thought he might have said something too far. But then she said, almost softly, You speak too freely, human. You do not know the cost of power? Nathan smiled. Maybe not, but I know the cost of loneliness. The soft hum of the Kylothian cruiser filled the air, as it had every day since Nathan had been brought aboard. He had grown accustomed to the gentle vibration beneath his feet, a constant reminder that he wasn't exactly on vacation. Yet things were different now. In the weeks since his last encounter with Zatral, his captor, his perspective had shifted. He had gone from prisoner to something else, an unwanted guest maybe, but someone who was at least treated as more than just a tool to be discarded. And somehow it had all happened without him even realizing when the shift occurred. He leaned against the cold wall of his cell, his arms folded across his chest. He had tried every escape trick he knew, but Zatral had made it clear he wasn't going anywhere. Still, there was an odd sort of comfort in knowing that he was alive. That, and the fact that the alien queen's attempts at forcing him into submission had turned into a bizarre sort of dance. She'd stopped threatening him outright, stopped giving him the cold, dehumanizing speeches. Instead, their encounters had become, well, a little more human. In an oddly twisted way, they were both still trying to figure each other out. Today was different, though. Today, Nathan was summoned to the throne room for something more than just a lecture. And truthfully, he was curious to see how this one would go. When he entered, Zatral was sitting in her usual position, her back straight, her eyes locked on him with that same calculating gaze. But something had changed in the way she looked at him. There was no animosity, no desire to break him. Instead, there was something that Nathan couldn't quite place. Something softer, almost. Vulnerable? Human, Zatral said, her voice strangely calm. You have spent weeks in my presence, weeks where you have resisted me, mocked me, and yet you remain unbroken. Why? Nathan gave her a half grin, his usual defiance still firmly in place. I'm just stubborn, I guess. You haven't figured that out yet? She didn't reply right away. Instead, her gaze shifted, a faint flicker of emotion crossing her face. You are different. Your people, they bow before me. They kneel. They submit. But you offer me something else, something I do not know how to handle. Nathan took a step closer, unfazed. Well, I'm not like the others. Maybe that's why I've lasted this long. He glanced around the room. Not to mention, you've got a pretty intimidating setup here. Makes me wonder how anyone would survive in this cold, grand palace of yours. Zatral's lips parted slightly as though the thought of a cold palace was an idea she had never considered. You mock me again? Oh no, no mocking. Just a little friendly commentary. You've been sitting on that throne for far too long, haven't you? Nathan raised an eyebrow, pushing the envelope. Maybe you should get out more. Get a change of scenery. Go for a walk, stretch those legs. Maybe even join the crew for a game of space poker or something. Her gaze softened, and she looked at him in silence for a few moments. You speak as if you know me. I know that you're not happy sitting there, Nathan said simply. You've spent so much time commanding, so much time crushing those beneath you, that you've forgotten what it's like to be, well, human, or maybe alien, or maybe just a person. I don't know, but you've forgotten something important. Zatral leaned forward, her eyes narrowing with thought. What do you think I've forgotten? Nathan shrugged. The people, the emotions, the stuff that makes life feel, well, worth it. The laughter, the moments when you're not just ruling, but actually connecting with someone. You've built walls around yourself, Queen Zatral, and now you don't even remember why you started building them in the first place. A long silence fell between them, and for the first time Nathan saw something in her eyes that wasn't cold calculation. It was doubt. Just a flicker, but it was there. You believe that I have forgotten? She asked, her voice quieter now, almost searching. I think you're afraid, Nathan replied, his voice softening. Afraid of what would happen if you let go. Afraid of what might change if you don't keep everyone under your thumb. Zatral stood, her armor making a sharp clinking noise as she moved. And you believe that I should simply let go? That I should surrender my power? My empire? I'm not asking you to give up everything, Nathan said, but maybe, just maybe, you could start considering other ways to lead. You don't have to rule with fear, Zatral. It's possible to rule with respect, with connection. You've got a whole empire behind you, but you've forgotten how to listen to them. The words hung in the air, and Nathan could see the inner turmoil flickering in her eyes. Her usual commanding presence had faded, leaving a moment of raw uncertainty. It wasn't weakness. It was something more human, something Nathan hadn't expected to see from her. Maybe it was a glimpse of the person she had once been before the weight of her empire had changed her. Finally, Zatral took a slow step toward him, her voice low but not harsh. You are not like the others. You never were. Her eyes searched his face as though trying to understand him. Why? Why do you persist in this madness? Nathan let out a small chuckle. Maybe because I've seen enough war, enough violence. I've seen what power does to people. I've seen how it changes them. But I'm not looking for power. I'm looking for something better. Zatral studied him, her gaze unwavering. And what is this something better you speak of? It's the same thing everyone wants, Zatral, Nathan said, a soft smile tugging at his lips. To be seen, to be heard, to be understood. He took a deep breath. I don't need you to kneel, and I'm not going to kneel before you. But if we're going to make this work, we need to find a new way to rule. A way that doesn't involve destruction, a way that involves connection, understanding, compassion. For the first time since they had met, Zatral didn't respond with immediate disdain or icy silence. Instead, she looked at him, not as a soldier to be crushed or a prisoner to be broken, but as something else, a person. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Perhaps, she said quietly, perhaps you are right. Nathan couldn't help but grin. Well, there's a first time for everything, right? Zitral tilted her head, and for the first time, a small smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. Perhaps. Nathan took a step back, his arms still crossed but his expression lighter. You've got the power, Zitral. Now it's up to you how you use it. And with that, a strange silence settled between them, one that didn't feel oppressive, but thoughtful, almost hopeful. Nathan didn't know what the future would bring, but he knew one thing. Zitral was no longer the same queen who had demanded his submission with every word. The walls around her had cracked, and there was a flicker of something more, a chance for something new. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end of the story. Maybe it was the beginning of something else entirely.